Very excited! It's like Christmas! Beavers have been reintroduced across the UK, but nowhere as urban as this. It's getting a bit real now, isn't it? So real. It was absolutely crucial to observe a beaver health check. Beavers are a native species we've lost, and we have a duty to bring them back. My heart is still going. That was a tense moment.
We're going to rewild our city.
Clean water plus light equals life.
Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this really special event. Now, if you're anything like me and you love beavers as much as I do, you've come to the right place to spend your Thursday evening. I just had to look at the top there to see what day of the week it was, but it's a Thursday, the best place to spend your Thursday evening for the premiere of a very special film called Beavers in Paradise, all about the reintroduction of this fantastic animal to Ealing. It's a film that was filmed and produced by award-winning wildlife filmmaker Matt Briley, and I've had a sneak peek. You're in for a real treat. It's something really special, and I think when we're talking about beavers, we're talking about so much more than just one species, so much more than just one animal. We're talking about the health of our ecosystem, and as you well know, probably, the UK is one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. Our biodiversity is much lower than where it should be, but by introducing beavers back, we are not only helping them, we are helping the ecology of the UK and so many different species as well. Beavers are our umbrella species. By looking after their habitat, by looking after them, you're encouraging whole new habitats to emerge that protect not only us, but other species from climate change and habitat destruction. So I'm a big beaver fan, as you will have guessed, and I'm really excited to dive into this important film. It tells a story, of course, as I said, about the reintroduction of beavers back into Ealing. It's the story of the Ealing Beaver Project, a collaboration between Ealing Wildlife Group, Citizen Zoo, Friends of Horston and Ealing Council. It's supported, of course, by the wonderful Beaver Trust, a fantastic charity. If you don't follow them already, make sure you go and do, as well as the Mayor of London's Rewild London Fund. And a huge thank you to the sponsor for the film, Consano Earth. If you have any questions whilst you're watching, please do drop them in the chat. There will be a Q&A afterwards where we'll delve into some of those questions. So think feet, think on your head, think on your feet. That's the wrong phrase, isn't it? I always say the wrong thing. But get your questions going, put them in the chat, and we will get to them after the film airs. But for now, have a great time. Hope you got your popcorn at the ready.
Now, if you like little furry animals, you're going to like this, because beavers are back in West London.
Very excited! It's like Christmas!
Beavers just swam off into the lagoon, swimming around, doing their beavery things.
They're back where they belong. Paradise Fields. I'm Dr. Sean McCormick, and I live in the borough of Ealing in London. And in 2016, I set up Ealing Wildlife Group to protect and enhance urban nature. In Greenford, in the north of the borough, there's a high flood risk, and that's a real worry for us in climate change Britain. Not far from here, there's a real oasis of nature. You go through this underpass, and it's like entering another world. And it might be cheesy to call it paradise, but it's actually in the name. It's called Paradise Fields. Despite the fact that this is a degraded habitat, the site was really important to me during the COVID pandemic. Like a lot of the British public at that time, I was getting out in nature, and I did become a little bit obsessed with one particular mammal, or rather the absence of it. You might think it was beavers, but actually it was Britain's fastest declining mammal, the water vole. It's 2 weeks since I last came to set some camera traps for water voles, and I'm back today to check and see if we've got any footage. But it was pretty bleak news, and I came to the conclusion that water voles were locally extinct.
My name is Elliot Newton. I'm one of the co-founders of Citizen Zoo. We're an organisation that specialises in rewilding and species reintroductions, and we've successfully reintroduced water voles into Greater London. And Citizen Zoo were curious to find out if Paradise Fields had potential for a water vole reintroduction.
So, what do you reckon? What's the consensus?
Yeah, so in its current condition, it's just not suitable for water.
The habitat just wasn't quite right.
There was, however, one large lagoon that showed some promise. and visiting that gave us an idea. Around that time, Citizen Zoo had set up the London Beaver Working Group. So we'd been searching across London for a site suitable for beavers, and here was Sean with the Ealing Wildlife Group with a site that might not be perfect for water voles, but certainly could be great for beavers.
We realised if we brought beavers here, they would actually create optimal water vole habitat.
So it might be surprising for some people to hear, but beavers are free living across many parts of England. There's actually some living in nearby Kent. So sooner or later, these beavers are going to naturally recolonise London's waterways. So this project is about preparing us for that eventuality.
But not only that, having beavers upstream of urban Greenford will reduce its flood risk. Beavers are a native species we've lost, and we have a duty to bring them back.
Paradise Fields is managed by Ealing Council.
Ealing Council were up for it, so it looked like we were all aboard the beaver train.
Across Europe and North America, you can find beavers living in the heart of urban environments. So they're not the wilderness species that some people might think they are.
Beavers have been reintroduced across the UK, but nowhere as urban as this. To reintroduce beavers, you do need a licence from Natural England, and their major concern on this site was that it is very urban and it was going to be open to the public. Here we are now in 2023 with the daunting challenge of erecting 1.2 kilometres of beaver-proof fencing.
Driving through here, concrete jungle, and then you're opened up to this beautiful site. So I'm James Hillary, I'm an agricultural and equine fencer. For a job like this, we're using all handwork. It's around 300 posts, and they're at 4 metre spacings. 2 weeks, 4 people. This is our 6th day. It does get exhausting. We're on the home stretch. We've got all the posts in the ground now. This obviously has the turnout and the skirt on it to prevent the beavers climbing over it and to stop them digging under.
How do you feel at the end of a working day?
Knackered.
So here, all of the animals are species that will be affected by the new beavers being introduced. If you see more of these, the beavers are helping the ecosystem. I sent a pitch through about the idea of one side of the underpass being underwater and the other one like fading from twilight into daylight, because the beavers are called crepuscular, they come out at twilight. Another thing I really enjoy about this project is it's the right combination of arty and nerdy. I've been working with Sean. When we picked the animals, I had to send him the pictures and he was like, actually that's the wrong type of stickleback. I love that kind of attention to detail, that's so important. What's important about this is it's called an indicator species. So the more bats that are in the area, it shows how well the ecosystem is doing. People will visit Paradise Fields. They'll remember the time this interesting rewilding project happened to Ealing.
Today is one of our field recorders days and we're focused on botany. We get local volunteers to come across the site and working with a leading botanist, Mark Spencer, we are surveying so we can see how our plant communities change over time once the beavers arrive.
These plants that are growing here very well now are actually naturally dominant, robust species. Sedges, willows, rushes, reeds, these are the big chunky beasts. Having beavers come in and nibble all of these things creates open space. Many wetland habitats, like the plant are sitting in the soil as seed. They can last for decades, if not centuries, waiting for their moment, for the ground to open out, the sun to hit the ground and for them to be able to grow. Plants get around by extraordinary ways. If there's good habitat here, they'll come.
I certainly will never forget our trip to Scotland.
So excited to meet some beavers.
Oh, I'm incredibly excited.
Roisin from Beaver Trust has been out trapping and she has found a family of beavers, not just 1 or 2, but 5 beavers. It's getting a bit real now, isn't it?
So real.
How incredible is that view? The sun came out for us, Elliot. Big day.
Oh, very big day. Good morning, machines. How you doing? We've just arrived.
Here we are. Hello. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
I'm Dr. Roisin Campbell-Palmer. I'm Head of Restoration with the Beaver Trust. So this family, it's mum and dad, a daughter from a previous year and 2 kits from this year. The kits are definitely characters. They're wee eating machines, so they're out all the time. And mum, I think mum's got a special place with all of us because she's just been such a big animal. That's been unusual, one of the largest that we've ever trapped. So she's quite an impressive animal. Definitely, the protector in the family and looking after everyone.
Also, have to say, how cute is the kit? It's like a little teddy bear, isn't it?
They are absolutely beautiful creatures.
Totally. They're hopefully going to change a few hearts and minds in London and beyond, not only changing their landscape, but I think they've got a really, really important job to do.
Well, if these guys can't do it, I don't know who can.
So the beavers are trapped in conflict areas under licence, so we bring them into our holding facilities at Five Sisters Zoo. They undergo a series of health checks just to make sure the beavers are in the best condition and fit for release.
It was absolutely crucial to observe a beaver health check. I'm also a vet, so if the beavers get sick when they come to Ealing, I'll be on the front line to look after them.
So we go through a set process. This has been agreed with not only vet specialists, but also it's a licensed condition. We take fecal and blood samples and run a whole range of disease screening. We are doing things like weighing the beaver, checking it's in good body condition, see if it has any injuries, if it needs any veterinary assistance.
This is a fantastic chance to see a beaver's dentition, which really is the secret to their lifestyle of taking down trees. So they've got these enormous incisors, upper and lower. You can see they're orange because the outer surface is lined with iron to strengthen them, giving this chisel-like appearance.
This tooth will grow 1 to 2 centimetres a month.
Wow.
So if they snap off, they'll regrow. Well, Sean, your animals all look in good health, so I think they're good for release.
We were incredibly relieved to find out that our beavers had passed their health checks, making it possible to translocate them down to London.
Very excited! It's like Christmas!
We want to really minimise the amount of time they're in the crates and the amount of journey time, so actually driving through the night from Scotland to London is a good quiet time.
I never thought my life would lead me to a moment when I'm carrying a 30-kilogram beaver through a field.
We've got Dad, the last to join the family. There's 4 crates. We've got Mum in one, we've got Dad in one, we've got an older daughter from last year in one, and we've got the 2 kids in one. We're here, the mayor's about to arrive, we're about to We're going to go now, so thank you all for coming to the Ealing Beaver Project. It's been a massive effort from a lot of people, a lot of volunteers, community project, real collaboration. So I hope we all have a good time, and I hope this all goes to plan.
Can't but smile when you see these beavers swimming around. I had the pleasure of releasing two kits, and it's great because they're going to improve this community. They help with the ecosystem. They're going to help us as well because, you know, we as a city for too long have been de-wilding our city, and we've got to rewild our city. More greenery, you know, more beavers. We've also got plans for, you know, waterfalls, and it's really important we do that. I think it's an issue of social justice. Many people in London haven't got a garden. They don't get to go to the countryside. We're bringing it to them.
And the best thing about this project is people will be able to come and see these beavers in an urban landscape. You know, this has been years in the making, and to have beavers out now is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, my heart is still going. That was a tense moment. We were like hoping nothing would go wrong, and it went absolutely amazingly.
They just melted right back into this landscape. We're in very urban London, and even though, you know, beavers have not been here for so long, I think what you see is a species that can just merge back into a habitat that it's native to, and hopefully does a lot of good.
Instead of excluding people behind a fence and having beavers on one side, people on the other, we're saying come and see a beaver wetland emerge over time.
So today has been absolutely phenomenal. We've released our family of beavers back into Paradise Fields, and it went incredibly well. The beavers just swam off into the lagoon, swimming around, doing their beavery thing.
I'm delighted. It couldn't have gone better, really. It all just went swimmingly well. They're back where they belong, Paradise Fields. Beavers come out at dusk, they work through the night, and they're still active at dawn. Right from the get-go, our camera traps, monitored by volunteers, provided a window into the beaver's secret world. Nature thrives where there's intermediate disturbance. Beavers provide that kind of disturbance. We watched as the beavers began to transform the habitat at Paradise Fields. As the beavers got their teeth into things, volunteers checked the fence line every morning. And here we are, just 5 short months later, to see how the site has changed.
With our beavers, you can really see the term ecosystem engineers because they have been transforming this landscape around us. It's tempting to think that tree felling is destructive, but tree species like the willow have evolved alongside beavers. Beavers felling them rejuvenates their growth.
Beavers live very well in high nutrient systems just like this. They improve water quality for more sensitive species downstream.
In just a few short months, the beavers have helped improve the water quality. The beavers have created a series of dams.
The willow they've cut us down is actually regenerating.
It's a very complex filtration system.
Organic material containing carbon settles in a beaver wetland, so it acts as a giant carbon sink. Locking up carbon is crucial for addressing climate change.
We know we're getting more wet and warm winters. We had a hell of a lot of rain come through here. Normally it would have washed out into urban Greenford, but these dams have done an incredible job of holding back that water and letting it percolate out slowly. When they make a dam like this, you get a pond forming upstream, a big open life-filled pool that really attracts a lot of wildlife. Things like midge larvae that grow into food for bats. You get damselflies, you get dabbling ducks and frogs and newts in the shallows. And most importantly, you get a lot of new species of plant that provide food and cover for water voles.
Beaver dams raise and stabilize the water levels. And over time, the water will spread out and create naturally occurring floodplains. Beaver wetlands can flood trees, creating deadwood, which boosts biodiversity from the bottom up.
This reed bed here was really dense and impenetrable, and you can see the beaver highways they've carved out of it, introducing more light into the system, and that will allow the more delicate aquatic plant life to establish.
Clean water plus light equals life.
Now nature has all the niches and microhabitats it needs to really flood in here and thrive. This project was born out of my obsession with water voles, and now thanks to the beavers, it's well on its way to being water vole ready. And plans are afoot to release them here. This project is more than just rewilded land. A community has built around this project. We are a rewilded people.
What a beautiful film. I think Matt's done just such a wonderful job in capturing the pure joy and also the effort that's gone in to releasing those animals to Ealing. It was a huge effort to do it, as I'm sure you can imagine, but also so exciting to see those doors open and those beavers wander out back to where they really belong is just, well, it's why we do what we do, isn't it? It's what makes it so important. And I've been lucky enough to go to a couple of beaver releases myself. And what amazes me is that you open up the door and they wander out, and honestly, it's like they never left. They get to gnawing, they get to swimming, they get doing their beavery duties. And it's just so exciting to see, and it reminds us sometimes of what we've been missing for a long time and the species that our countryside has long been crying out for because of the impact that they have. So it's really exciting that beavers are making a comeback. Of course, there are some challenges still with it, but we're fighting those challenges increasingly harder. And even more exciting for me that they are making a home within our urban landscapes, because we can't forget about our urban landscapes. Nature really is everywhere. We've just got to find space for it. So to talk a little bit about the excitement of the Ealing Beaver project, a little bit about the challenges and the pure joy of it, I've got an excellent panel talking about the entire story with me tonight. So we've got Dr. Sean McCormack, who's the chair of the Ealing Wildlife Group and project lead and license holder on the Ealing Beaver project. We've got Elliot Newton, co-founder of Citizen Zoo and project partner of the Ealing Beaver project. We've got Matt Brierley, shooting producer and of Beavers in Paradise, the films you've just seen. And then Eva Bishop, who's head of communications for the wonderful Beaver Trust. So hello, everyone.
Hi, Megs. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you. It's such a wonderful film, and like I said before, a joy to watch, and a combination of all your efforts that these beavers are here. I'm going to start off actually with you, Eva, if that's okay, with just a quick question. Because when I think of beaver introductions, or traditionally when you think of beaver introductions, you do think of them kind of out in the sticks a little bit. You think of it out in a wetland where there's not many people around. This story is just a little bit different. So how was that different from the Beaver Trust side, producing or taking these beavers into a city?
Well, I think from many perspectives, it was just another beaver site, and it's a nice example of the green space that is available in London. You think of London as a very concrete area, and there's lots of beautiful green space. But having found this site, I mean, there were fun moments of sort of my colleague Rasheen driving into London at an ungodly hour to avoid the traffic that's unusual with an urban site. But it's shining example is that it's so accessible to so many people, and that produced a couple of challenges that Sean and Elliot can talk about because of the accessibility, but that has huge positives in terms of helping people see what beavers can do firsthand and learn to coexist with them again.
Yeah, really exciting that they are, as you said, accessible to everyone. I'll come to you next. Typically when, beavers are introduced in Scotland, it's a bit more of a wild release. The legislation's a little bit different. You don't have to have them in fenced areas, but obviously in England, that's a little bit different, and certainly the case within Ealing. Talk to me a bit about that process.
Yeah, so we kind of pitched this idea first to Ealing Council, and we were very lucky, I suppose, that we had support straight away. The head of parks in Ealing Council is a Canadian called Chris Welch, and we said, we'd like to bring beavers back to look at urban flooding mitigation and to restore habitats. And his response was, okay. So we kind of had not much of a challenge there. And then we had public to discuss as well. A lot of rural introduction projects, you're maybe discussing with 3 or 4 or 5 different landowners surrounding, but this is the heart of urban London, and we had a lot of people and communities to discuss this with and get support from. So it was a bit more complicated in some ways, but in other ways maybe we didn't have some of the objectors. A lot of people were crying out for more nature in the city and really wanted to see this happen. So there were pros and cons, I suppose, and there was definitely a lot of hoops to jump through, but we got there.
Elliot, how about from your perspective then?
Yeah, well, I think it was, first thing I always want to say is, the beavers are not really people sometimes think of beavers being a wilderness species that need to be out in the middle of the remote areas somewhere. But actually, if you look across Europe, you look across North America, we have beavers living in the heart of our urban centres, places like Berlin. I've seen somebody in the chat talk about beavers in Berlin. Yeah, absolutely. So what a big part of this was just telling people that actually it's not crazy to say that we could have beavers living in the urban landscape, and then actually we can all the benefits that they can bring. And I think it was so exciting just bringing that message to people. And one thing we did a few years before going ahead with the project was setting up a London-wide working group to get people who were thinking about beavers in the urban setting, and be able to go into people in various sort of conservation organisations and actually saying this is a really good idea, and seeing that momentum build and bringing it to the local community and actually see it actually come to fruition has been absolutely magical process, and seeing them thrive now is just tremendous.
Well, it's a huge achievement from everyone that's been involved, and like you say, beavers are in the hearts of cities elsewhere in Europe, so why not here in the UK? I mean, it's that shifting baseline syndrome thing, isn't it, where we get used to the current environmental norms of our generation and we don't ever expect it to have been anything else because that's normal for us. But actually, when you look back in history and you look at other nations, the situation with biodiversity and people, well, we are part of biodiversity, but living harmoniously and coexisting calmly together is a very kind of different story. Matt, I'll come to you next and talk a bit about the film. It's an excellent film, so congratulations. It's very good.
Thank you.
How did you fit that all into 15 minutes? Because that's a big story to contain.
Yeah, at one point it was 25 minutes long, and you're always sort of chipping away at it, and you're thinking, how can I make it shorter? How can I make it shorter? How can I pull out that sentence and still maintain the meaning? But I wanted to make a film that was 15 minutes long, so that you don't zone out, and that you're focused on it. But yeah, certainly there's an awful lot of messages in there. I really wanted to sort of flag the USPs of the project. So for this project, it's the most urban beaver reintroduction ever. It's very important for me to get that message in there. I really wanted to get in the messaging about the water voles and how actually it was Sean's passion for water voles that meant that he recruited a team of beavers essentially to engineer habitat, and at some point in the future hopefully water voles will be introduced into paradise fields. And also the third USP of the project is that it's open access. It's not like other beaver reintroduction projects where the public are one side of the fence and the beavers are the other. You can walk through this and you can see a beaver wetland evolve over time. So hopefully all of that messaging, as well as the sort of more traditional features and benefits of beavers, is in that 15-minute film.
Is there anything that surprised you when you were putting it all together?
Yes. So I'm very blessed that I work in wildlife television. So this was a slight detour, and it was just such a privilege. I've said this before, but I find both Sean and Elliot to be incredibly inspiring individuals. Sean founded Ealing Wildlife Group, and Elliot co-founded Citizen Zoo. These people are doers, and I felt energized working on this project because I've been working alongside Sean and Elliot, but not only Sean and Elliot, but people from the Beaver Trust and the volunteers on this project, people that get up at the crack of dawn every morning to wander the fence line to make sure that someone's not cut a hole in the fence. The release day was so high octane, so sort of adrenaline filled, and everyone was just on a high, and it was wonderful. And that's been the really exciting thing for me making this film, is just feeling that I've gone from sort of an external person pointing a camera to actually I feel like I'm part of this community now, and that's wonderful.
That's a lovely thing, isn't it? And it, like you said, I mean, this wouldn't happen without doers like Elliot and Sean and Eva, but also the volunteers that give up their time, come rain or shine, and that takes a lot as well to do. Now, if you do have any questions and you're watching at home after seeing that film, or you're inspired by anything that any of the speakers have, please put your questions in the chat. We will get to them. So this is a question. I'm going to head to you, Sean, for this one. This is from Matthew de Souza, who says, how do beavers thrive in London when I always thought the water quality wasn't the cleanest?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's definitely something that we looked at, when we were looking at Paradise Fields, and that came up in the public consultation, that people were worried mainly about this project when we asked them to feed in to it. They were worried about the beavers' welfare. So they're worried about water quality. They were worried about disturbance from humans, disturbance from dogs. In terms of water quality, beavers are rodents and they're very, very resilient animals. And they can cope with the kind of high nutrient systems that a lot of our rivers have and a lot of our watercourses have at the moment. And the wonderful thing about beavers is that they actually improve the water quality for lots of more sensitive species downstream, as I said in the film. So their dams are acting as giant filtration devices. They're slowing the flow, and pollutants and nutrients are settling out into the sediment layer of those water bodies, and they're basically cleaning the water. So we've been doing a lot of monitoring, and the brook that we've put them into is a headwater of the Thames. So it's not as polluted as the Thames. It's not as polluted as the Brent that it flows into. It's one of the upstream headwaters where beavers actually can have the most effect on things like flood mitigation, drought mitigation, alleviating water quality. So we've seen already, by looking at the water quality coming into site and the water quality where it's leaving site, up to over 50% reduction in nitrates and phosphates, for example, and a much reduced level of total dissolved solids, which includes things like particulates from road runoff or detergents or any of the kind of pollutants that do get into urban river catchments through mist connections and domestic use. So we're also kind of utilizing the beavers' role as this ecosystem engineer to show that they're part of the solution for the real problem state that our rivers and our freshwater ecosystems are in right now. And they're thriving there. They've done absolutely brilliant there. So they're doing a good job.
Yeah, it's remarkable to see the impact that they've already made in a relatively short space of time, actually, and how they've kind of created a habitat that's not only suitable for them, but for lots of other species. Eva, I'm going to come to you with this question next. This is from Spencer, who's aged 10, and this is a good question. He would like to know how big/heavy a branch can be for a beaver to move.
That's an amazing question, and I don't know the definitive scientific answer to that. Please do chime in, Sean and Elliot, if you've got an answer. But they are very strong, and they can take down really wide tree trunks. Carrying them, once they're in the water, they'll have a much better chance of floating very large branches. But they would gnaw them to cut them down to size before then. I'm not able to give you a weight though, but we should experiment.
Yeah, it's kind of like floating on the water. It's a bit of a helping hand for them, isn't it? But like you see them dragging things off the bank, which is always quite entertaining when it seems at least a lot longer than the animal itself, which is always quite funny.
Elliot, you had an encounter the other night on one of your beaver safaris about Big Mama carrying some.
Oh, it was incredibly special. So it was last week. We were just doing one of our evening beaver safaris. We were going out and try and show people the majestic nature of these animals traversing the beaver enclosure. And it was getting very dark. We were standing just behind this bush, and then this beaver, this big mama beaver, so our big beaver, she weighs about 30 kilograms, so she's big even for a big beaver. She came really close to us and she started nibbling on this bush right in front of us. And the sound, if anybody gets to hit one of the best sounds in the whole of the natural landscape, I think, is the sound of a beaver nibbling on a bit of wood. It's a tremendous thing to listen to. And we watched this big mama beaver effectively fell this bush in front of us that we were sort of standing behind, and then she just dragged it off into the distance. Now, I don't know exactly how heavy that was, but it looked like a pretty heavy bush to me. So as Eva says, it can be pretty strong animals.
Yeah, we got a great bit of footage. Probably in the first couple of weeks after they arrived, on our trail cameras, where again the big female, big mama as we call her, she was carrying off over ground, probably a length of tree that was 20 times her length, really long piece of tree limb. And then about 2 minutes later, one of the tiny little babies born last year dragged a tiny little branch along behind her, copying her basically. So we've seen some really tender moments and some really interesting behaviors where they're kind of learning from older sister and from the mum and dad just how to do it, just how to beaver.
But speaking kind of along those sort of lines, we've had another question from Nature-tastic Henry. I know Henry from social media. He's given us a question that says, are we expecting them to breed soon, and how many can the site support? Who wants to
Elliot,
take
do you want to
the
break the news?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and we have some incredibly exciting news. And one thing, our beavers have settled in fantastically well, and one way that we've sort of proven that is that we can say that they've successfully bred on site already. And we've been putting out wildlife cameras. Sean's going out at night time with these wildlife cameras and putting them on trees, and we're getting this amazing behavior. So I think, Sean, if I'm right in thinking, we might actually have some amazing footage of the beaver babies that are playing around right now. And just, again, a truly majestic thing to see beavers playing, baby beavers playing, and really looking really healthy.
Yeah, so this is the first trail camera footage that we collected, and we kind of knew that they had had babies at least. We didn't know if the babies had survived, but I saw Big Mama reaching up for some willow, and I saw that she had quite prominent teeth. So I knew that she'd had babies and was feeding babies in the lodge earlier in the summer. And then on the 30th of June, we got this little bit of footage of a rat running along that branch, and then behind the rat, all of a sudden, this little tiny creature appears, and it's about the size of a guinea pig, maybe. So that was the first glimpse on the 30th of June of a baby. And then we got some footage, and we got some sightings from one of our really dedicated volunteers of 2 babies together. So we know they've had at least 2 babies this year. They came out of the lodge late June, early July. They've been splashing around there. They've been playing with their older siblings and with mum and dad. You'll see, I think, in the next scene, a little kind of interaction where one of the adults comes along and they have a little play and a little nuzzle and a little wrestle in the water. And they're thriving now. I saw one the other day, probably last week, myself in person, and we're getting more and more footage as the time goes by, and they're getting big, they're growing fast, and they're starting to do what beavers do, and they're probably fully weaned now. But I did see again some really tender footage of them asking mum for some milk the other day, and she wasn't too keen. So I think they're approaching weaning now and eating solid foods totally. So yeah, brilliant news. As Elliot said, real proof of concept that these beavers have settled in. They're happy, they're content, and we're up to 7 beavers now in the family, which is great. And to the point about how many we can have, we've given them more space than they need. So the Beaver Trust recommendation is 2 hectares of good quality habitat per family of beaver, and we've given them 8 hectares of amazing quality habitat. So there's potential for more than one colony or more than one family group in our enclosure, but we're quite keen to just leave it as the one family group. And what happens in time is probably the older juveniles will start to want to go off and develop territories of their own, and we'll do a little bit of management. We'll probably be taking out the eldest daughter, the adolescent female, either this year or maybe next year, and finding her boyfriend and sending her off to start a new family of her own. So we do have to do a little bit of management. Obviously, these are semi-wild populations of beavers behind fences, but hopefully in time, the political landscape will change and we'll be able to apply for wild release licenses of beavers, which I know that Eva and the team at Beaver Trust are very keen to see happen as well.
Yeah, well, there have been a few questions about, will the fence ever come down in England? Will there ever be, wild release licenses given, and especially under the new government? Is there any sort of hints that is something that they're thinking about? So Eva, I'll hand that one over to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're all hoping for this, certainly not just Beaver Trust, it's the way forward, but we are working really hard with all the authorities and governments to try and make this happen. So where the status, just for everyone's background, is that we have had greatest policy progress in Scotland since the first Beaver trial through to granting European protected status. And crucially, their policy includes a full beaver strategy to 2045. So they plan out and they look at Scotland as a whole. That's what we would like to see in England, as well as, and within that would be a wild release licensing framework, so that you've got consistency and across the country, and management frameworks to guide how you manage those beavers, and it's all sort of centrally managed and understood. And in Wales, we have yet to see European status granted, protected status, but the University of Exeter has done a recent perception survey in the general public and found 88% of people keen to see the return of the Eurasian beaver. So that's a sort of status across Britain. But what we are hearing from the Labour government is a lot of commitment to good environmental policies and areas of policy within which beavers would work really well to help achieve their targets. So we're hopeful, but there's that's as far as it goes at the moment.
Be a fantastic day when that happens, wouldn't it? It would just be, yeah, everyone I think would be over the moon, and it'd be so exciting to see beavers introduced to new areas without those extra hurdles that you have to overcome, because there are more hurdles, relocating in England.
It absolutely is. And of course, at the moment, we've got about 30 of these enclosures now in England, and this is a wild animal that is native to this country and belongs in the countryside, and we want to see it normalised. It's part of our natural fauna, and it's getting to the point where this is overdue. So it will be a really good day when that does happen.
Absolutely. Oh, Julia Jordan and a few others, Joe as well, have asked, is the reintroduction of beavers planned for any other boroughs in London or any other city for that matter? Any other little projects on the go? Who wants to take that one?
Shall I jump in there? That's, again, a really good question. I think one thing to firstly say, so our Ealing project is a really exciting pioneering project. It's the most urban London, beaver release site in history, and its public access is incredible. But we were not the first people to release beavers into London. Enfield did a fantastic job working again with the Beaver Trust, and it beat us back about a year previous to us releasing beavers. Actually released them into northern Enfield. So there's currently there's a beaver enclosure there as well. But what is so fantastic about our site, I think we really wanted to become a demonstration about how we can live alongside beavers in the urban landscape, benefit from the amazing ecosystem services that they can bring to make our towns and cities more sort of resilient to the challenges of climate change. And what is so fantastic, we're now bringing people to the site and showing them, look, it's not a pipe dream. We're doing it. The beavers are thriving, and we're starting to get all these benefits. So we are having discussions with other London boroughs now and saying, yes, you can do it. It's not a problem. And also even before London, Plymouth actually have released beavers into the urban landscape as well. So there is a growing movement, I hope, within the UK about saying beavers are not a species that should be out in the rural environment alone, but they should also be living alongside us in our more urban spaces. So hopefully this will catalyse a movement, and we'll see more and more sort of beavers living in the urban landscape. And hopefully one day they won't be behind an enclosure, as Eve was talking about. Actually, we'll have free living beavers in our cities, which would be, I think, really beneficial for so many reasons.
It'd be really exciting to see. And in the face of climate change and ever increasing pinching of our biodiversity, we need to connect with nature now more than ever. And and the fact that beavers can help our environment and mitigate the impacts of flooding like they do, they're not the solution for that. We can't pretend that putting beavers will stop all flooding in the UK and it will all be fine. It's not the case at all. But they're certainly give us a helping hand with that, and that's something that's really important, isn't it? Matt, I'm going to come to you next, because of course, films like this, I think, are incredibly powerful because they reach wider audiences and things, but actually making it must be quite an empowering thing to do. What do you think the role is for films like this in conservation?
I think they're so important. I could see the numbers ticking up as people logged in, and I think peak was like 279. And I'm just delighted that 279 people had chosen to give up a rainy Thursday evening and watch a film about beavers, part of a chat about beavers. Yeah, it's been an absolute privilege to make a film that I feel makes a tangible difference. Like we were just talking about beavers in the urban landscape. The reality of this is there are enough feral beavers now, particularly in places like Kent, that they're sort of knocking on the capital city's door, really. It's it is going to happen. And, this project has normalized that. And hopefully this film is a window into that world and normalizes it for anyone that comes to the film. So yeah, it's been a pleasure to make it. Absolutely.
It's really brilliant to see, so much engagement from it already. What's next for the film? Where's it going to go?
So myself, Sean, and Nadia, who is in the film, we've been invited to Beaver Con. Now, this is the world's biggest beaver conference. Who knew? In Colorado. And that is in October that we're off to screen the film at Beaver Con, which is, again, is fantastic that we can bring this film to an audience of academics as well. So very excited about that. I'm hoping further down the track that we will do more screenings as well. It's been entered into various wildlife film festivals. And hopefully through time, once the film goes out on YouTube and people stumble across it or people are steered towards it, I look at historic films that have been made, like Beavers Without Borders by Nina Constable, a terrific film. And the number of hits that film has had now, so in the region of about 11,000 views, I think. So yeah, it's my hope that this film also has a legacy through time as people discover it. So yeah, fingers crossed for that the audience continues to grow through time.
Well, it's an exciting piece of history, isn't it? It kind of is part of the puzzle of us kind of regaining biodiversity and kind of reconnecting to nature, which is really, really lovely, I think.
Absolutely. I've got all sorts of favorite moments in the film, but one of my very favorite moments is actually Shauna, the street artist. And because you'd expect an ecologist to be in the film. You might even expect the guy that's built the fence to be in the film, but someone that's spray painting a tunnel. And when the project started and we walked for that first day, when Sean took me onto the site and we walked through the tunnel, and there was sort of an abandoned shopping trolley there, and there was like litter. And I don't know if gentrified is the right word. Have the Beavers gentrified Paradise Fields? But it's just been an upward cycle now. I think it's wonderful when you walk through there, and to have someone like Shauna, who's not from an ecological background, didn't know about indicator species, didn't know about beavers. She's been commissioned to paint a mural, and she sort of absorbs this information, and then she can become sort of a mouthpiece to communicate that. I'm always excited when a film reaches a new audience, away from sort of a traditional audience. So yeah, when I watched the bit with Sean, I get very excited.
Yeah, it goes to show, doesn't it, that when you're talking about conservation, like often, we're all guilty. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I talk from a science angle all the time because that's what I'm nerdy about, and that's what I love. And I love, the nitty gritty little details. But actually, when you bring in the arts and the culture, it widens it so much more, and it makes it such a deeper, richer story, because you can connect more people when you include art and music and literature and everything else, and it just widens that net, and you end up, we always preach to the converted, but you end up inviting new people into the conversation through those mediums, and engage in a whole different way, which is so critical, in so many different ways, I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
no, I think that's so special. Just sort of further on to what Matt was saying a little bit, the beavers have just...
You're popping a bit, Elliot.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Get your earphones out and we'll... Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Is that better? Maybe?
A little, yes. Yeah, a bit better.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just so Sean didn't... No, I tell you what, Sean, take it away. I'll sort out my audio.
You're buzzing. But you're fizzing.
Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, the mural, there's now 2 murals. There's a mural on the canal side, along the towpath by the canal as well. Shauna came back and did an absolutely amazing job on that too, and showed the kind of habitat changes the beavers are making and all the species benefiting from it. It's been fantastic actually to go on the site whatever day and whatever month of the project progression and see new people coming to site. We're getting visitors not only from just all over London, but people are coming from further afield to join us to come and see what the beavers are doing. And I love going down there kind of incognito without my high-vis vest on, saying Ealing Beaver Project on the background, and just listening to what people are saying. And last week we installed our interpretive signage, which we waited until we knew the beavers were settled and we hadn't lost our license and things hadn't gone wrong. You know, we've paid a significant amount of money to put beautiful interpretive and interactive signage with QR codes and fixed point photography and things on, and kids activities. And just seeing and hearing people talking about it in such positive terms, and coming up with like snippets and sound bites that we take for granted on like what beavers do. There's been a real kind of warm kind of adoption of these beavers into the community at Greenford, and people coming in and talking to each other and going, yeah, did you know there's beavers in here? And they're actually kind of solving the problem of flooding in urban Greenford. And people are now like parroting all of the things that we've been parroting for 3 years to make this project come to fruition, and to get permission, and to convince Natural England it was a good idea, and Ealing Council, and some of the very tiny but vocal minority of people who are a bit anti-beaver, especially in the online comments section of social media platforms, to see that actually it worked. The sky didn't fall down. The beavers are happy. They're doing exactly what we said they're going to do, and more, and quicker. That's been the real delight, that we've seen them actually, you know, kind of make a huge impact within the space of a few months, really make a big impact, especially on the urban flooding issue. So it's been, yeah, just a delight to see how people are interacting with it. And I think, to Matt's point, you know, having different ways to communicate that information, and including art, and really including the community at the heart of the project. They're the real heroes, I think, in this story, because we've got this army of dedicated volunteers that we can call on day or night at any time. We need 8 people tomorrow to do this thing, and there's 20 people there willing to do it. So I think it's the community element that really has blown our socks off, and we're just so delighted that Greenford and Ealing and London, you know, have taken these beavers to heart and welcomed them, and are now an army of beaver believers and advocates telling everyone else about how great beavers are.
I love that.
I think one thing that really surprised me, I was expecting to make a bit of the film that showed that the site had changed. I wasn't expecting to sort of have a shoot day, go back the following day, and see the site had changed overnight. The speed with which the beavers engineer habitat, and their intelligence in sort of problem solving intelligence, of like, right, if I dig here and fell this tree here and this water will rise here, and it's like, wow, it blows your mind. And the other thing is, like, so I had the experience that right at the start of the project, no beavers in. And I'm a very keen birder, so I'm always listening out for birds. And when I've been back more recently, actually, like, the bird life already in a single season has massively improved. So you had like all the hirundines, the swallows, the swifts, the house martins hawking over the water, because for the first time there's more invertebrates, there's more flies, which incredible. Kingfishers have been seen on the site because the visibility is better, so they can fish on the site. They never used to do it. So I've been fairly gobsmacked that it's like, I knew that beavers were ecosystem engineers. I didn't think that I would see changes from one day to the next. It's been extraordinary.
Yeah, well, in nature, we see things happening slowly. Beavers are just on a mission
Yeah.
to make things
They
better.
are.
And it's great. It's great.
The other thing we've seen, so we've done a lot of baseline monitoring of like what was there before the beavers arrived. So we've surveyed everything from earthworms to snails to slugs to plants, and bats, especially as an indicator species, have been really important. And we're starting to see early evidence. It may not be statistically significant yet, but we're starting to see really kind of promising green shoots. So we've had Doe Benton's bat, the water bat, arrive on site this summer for the first time. We've recorded it in recent years. As Matt said, the amount of aquatic invertebrates coming out of the water now and hatching, and the swifts and bats feeding on them in the evenings at the same time, We've never seen that amount of activity there before. ZSL London Zoo came in and did some pro bono work for us to do a lot of aquatic invertebrate survey. And one of the problems of Paradise Fields was that there's too many trees there, and it's overshading the brook to the point that there's no light getting in, and light is the base of the food chain. And the brook was basically described by them last year as a bit of an ecological dead zone. With the beavers coming in and coppicing down some of those riverside trees and opening up the light and opening up the habitat, we're seeing a boom in the plant diversity, the algae growing in the brook, the things like freshwater shrimp that have shown up now that are feeding the likes of kingfishers. And hopefully in time we'll have fish arrive in from, you know, local watercourses as brought in as eggs on birds' feet and things like that. So fingers crossed, we're going to see big changes over the coming years. We're already seeing those changes in year one, you know, remarkably so. So yeah, they're kind of described as a biodiversity magic pill that you can drop into an ecosystem and then turbocharge it. And yeah, the rate at which they're making those changes has been probably the biggest surprise of the project, to be honest.
Mm. No, I love that. Right, we're kind of coming to an end now, so I'm going to do a quick whip round of everyone. Well, actually, first of all, one more question. If people want to come and see the Ealing beavers, when's the best time to see them? Where do they go? You know, what should they bring with them to get the best view? I'll give that. Elliot, how's your fizzing? Is your fizzing?
You tell me, is that working okay?
There you go.
Fantastic. Great. Yeah, well, there's lots of opportunities. I'll say the first thing to say, anybody can come at any time into this enclosure. It's not locked. So that's incredible, right? And if you go onto the Ealing Beaver Project website, we run regular tours across the site where we tell you about the project, how beavers came to live and thrive in Ealing. And in the evenings, we are running also beaver safari watching tours as well. So there's so many opportunities. You can either go on your own, or you can come and join us and we can tell you a bit more of the insights about what's going on. So many opportunities to get involved. And one additional thing, as I say, has been a very important point is the community nature of this project. There's so many volunteers. So if you want to come along, but also if you want to get involved, there's so many ways in which you can help us monitor the fences, monitor the ecology. This is really the heart of this project is the beavers, but also the community, and the community being a real part of this, and anybody can get involved. So yeah, please do come along, get involved, and be part of the project.
I would just add that at the moment, all of our beaver evening safaris are sold out. We may have some other dates coming down the line, but once we get into October next month, it'll be dark a little bit too early to see the beavers coming out. So we'll be going again from kind of late spring next year. But if you want to follow Ealing Wildlife Group on Eventbrite, the ticketing platform where you got the link today, then you'll be notified of new dates coming up. So please do follow Ealing Wildlife Group on Eventbrite for notifications on tickets and tours. And then if you want to sign up to our volunteering newsletter, both on Citizen Zoo website and on Ealing Wildlife Group's website, that's where you'll be notified of opportunities to come in and get involved if you want to volunteer.
Brilliant. Make sure you do that. It's so important and so critical. And projects like this would not be happening without the support of everyone, the communities getting involved. Okay, now I'm going to put you all on the spot because that's just what I do. I'm going to ask you for just a sentence, and you can tell me in your own words why beavers are so important. You could talk to me about their ecology, how they connect with people, but you've just got 10 seconds to fight for beavers. Go on, Eva, I'm going to start with you.
Right. We talk about ecosystems rebuilding and climate resilience a lot, climate resilient landscapes, and we need that really desperately, really urgently, and biodiversity return. There is nothing in the natural world that does this so efficiently and challenges our relationship with ecosystems and our reliance on them than beavers. And they challenge us to think bigger than human interaction and to give nature space to return. And I think that there's very little else that does it so effectively.
Very good. Go on, Sean.
That was a good elevator pitch, Eva. I don't know if I'll beat that one. I would just say that 83% of us in England, at least England, live in towns and cities, and we cannot do without nature in towns and cities. It's not the preserve of country estates and things like that. Beavers are back in cities and towns and living alongside us again all over the world, which is brilliant. And I think we need to welcome them back because all of the pros really, really far outweigh the few cons that we can get over with simple, effective and cheap management techniques to live alongside the species again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Matt, how about you?
I think beavers are one of those species that galvanize people because they are emblematic of wilderness. But I think this project shows that they thrive in an urban environment. So if you want a little slice of primeval wilderness on your doorstep, then you need to be a beaver believer, a beaver believer.
Very good. Yeah, that's a bit of a tongue twister there, isn't it? Elliot.
It's never easy going last on these things, but one of the most amazing things I think about this project is I go there in the morning and I watch school children walking to school via a beaver enclosure. Like, and they're walking through a beaver landscape to get to school. People are walking through a beaver landscape to get to work. This project shows that we can live in nature-rich environments side by side with nature, helping to sort of re-challenge what perceptions we should have when it comes to nature within our urban settings. So hopefully what we've done here is a step in the right direction to sort of re-challenge the whole concept of what an urban environment should be, what the 9 million people in London, the 200 languages that are spoken here, what people should be living around, immersed with nature, and nature being part of the daily experience. And this is really what we're trying to do here. And hopefully we can scale this up and get more people, living alongside nature and just, for everyone's benefit, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with all of that more. Now, we are just rounding up. I think, Sean, you wanted to say a couple of words?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few thank yous. I won't make it a big Oscar speech, don't worry. But Matt has been an absolute pleasure to work with, and he's a cracking filmmaker. We sort of knew we had a lot of people pitch for this idea, but having seen Matt's application and his previous work, we were just delighted to have him on board. So thank you, Matt. It's a brilliant film. I think everyone will agree, and hope to work with you again on the 5-year update of Beavers in Paradise, maybe. And then Beaver Trust as well. Myself and yourself, Megan, are ambassadors for the charity, and they're just a wonderful organization. And they've supported us brilliantly on this project, finding us the beavers, helping us out with comms and the feasibility report and things like that as well. And then just a final thank you to Consano Earth. They are a wonderful organization that Beaver Trust introduced us to, and they have very generously donated to cover the costs of producing this film, and also to some of our interpretive signage as well. So thanks to them. I'll leave it there. I could thank a load of people, finally the volunteers, and you, Megan, as well, for coming on board before the Beavers arrived, and with this as well. Thank you.
No, of course. And to you guys, I mean, like Matt said earlier, you're doers, and it's inspiring, and the Beavers are there because of the effort that all of you have put in. So, I take my hat off to you. I really do. It's excellent work, and so exciting that there are now kits swimming around.
Yeah.
And it shows the success of this, and it's only up from here. So thank you all so much for joining me on the panel and for the premiere of this beautiful film, Beavers in Paradise. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a fantastic evening. And I'm going to leave you with one comment from Lilac Underwood, who says, "Beavers are back. Go tell a friend." Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.